Well, I remember another statement also that Mr. Fromm made to me back, about a year ago, before they began to do it. He said to me one day, he said, Chaplain, I'll tell you when it's all over. And I said, what do you mean? He said, whenever the Federal Reserve begins to buy its own issues, he said it's all over.
Absolutely.
Now, you remember very well when nations of the world stopped showing up to buy the interest, the interest on the debt, which basically is the T-bills and the securities that are issued by the Federal Reserve every so many days. And you remember when nations of the world thought that this was the most solid currency that there was on the face of the earth with these Federal Reserve issues. And Mr. Fromm said to me, he said, Chaplain, whenever the Federal Reserve begins to buy its own issues for the national debt, he said, Chaplain, it's all over. Well, they began this, about 6-8 months ago, because people weren't showing up to buy the T-bills and the other securities that the Federal Reserve issued. And now, of course, you know from what you're seeing openly, the Federal Reserve is admitting to it now that they're having to monetize all of this day after day after day because other nations aren't showing up to buy these. They themselves are broke. Plus, they don't trust the American dollar. They don't trust the Federal Reserve issues anymore. And I warned people, the day you see that happen, it begins the ultimate demise of the dollar.
Yep. The writing is on the wall, and I want to circle back to something that we touched on briefly because, to me, this is the perfect symbol of the complete loss of the pretense of American sovereignty, and that's the fact that it's been reported that Hillary Clinton is lobbying to be the head of the World Bank. Lindsey, I know that scares you. I think it speaks to what you're talking about when you talk about the world elite, when you talk about the plans, the hidden plans behind the men behind the curtain. You talk about the elites of the world and their plans for this country. There can be no better example than that, than Hillary Clinton lobbying to become the head of the World Bank.
You're right. One of the statements I made way back 35 years ago was, if someone had asked me before I went on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline, Chaplain, do you think there's a group of people on the face of the earth who tell the president what to do, dictate to Congress what bills to pass, and control the price of crude oil on any given day? Would you have said that you believe those people exist? And before living with them, I would have laughed at somebody and said, who are you, John Bircher? So I'm sure that some people out in the audience might possibly have some question about what you're hearing today, but please don't. Because after living with these people and sitting in their board meetings and hear them talking about control of the world, literally talking about it, and predicting what was going to take place, they do exist. They do control the world. They do not only control America. They do not only control Europe. Some people think that someone asked the other day, they said, okay, do they control China and Russia? I said, sure they do. They control China and Russia just like they control the United States of America. They just do it by a little different method. You may have noticed this past week, China's scared to death. This past week, China, I have the headlines right here in front of me from MSNBC. China warns U.S. debt default idea is playing with fire. China holds approximately $3 trillion. We thought at one time it was $1 trillion. Now we know the actual holding of China of $3 trillion. They're divesting themselves as fast as they can because they see the demise of the American dollar. And China is actually coming out and warning people of things that I was talking about 2 years ago, playing with fire. So they control the entire world by using different methodology, and Washington is in bed with them. I'm thinking of my own state here, the state of Arizona, and John McCain, who ran for the presidency and, of course, didn't make it. Mr. Obama got in. And I know all over the state of Arizona, every place John McCain went, I want to get to Washington. I am going to see to it that the health care bill is done away with. He hasn't done one thing about doing away with the health care bill since he got in Washington. They're bought, they're paid for by the elite, and they don't do anything except what the elite tell them to do. They pull their strings. Every bill that goes through the Congress has some backing from the elite somewhere in the past few years, they know exactly what they're doing, Sean.
Absolutely. Well, before we let you go, Pastor Williams, is there anything that you can share with us that's come out of your most recent discussion with your source?
There sure is. In fact, I'm going to bring... How controversial can I get on this program?
As controversial as you'd like, sir.
Well, there's one thing that very, very few people in the freedom movement has touched on, that to me is probably one of the most critical items when everything falls apart. Now, it's going to fall apart. There's no question about this. And many of you out there are already prepared. And many of you are getting prepared very rapidly. But there's one thing that practically everybody has discounted and is not talked about, and that is, what are you going to do for your family's health when it all falls apart? Yeah, you've talked about the need of having food in your house. You've talked about having water in your house. And in my latest DVD series, The Middle East, The Rest of the Story, I list 12 things that you must do immediately. And you cannot wait until tomorrow. It should have been done yesterday. But you must do them immediately in light of what the elite have told me. But one of them, it included in all of this, that very few people have thought about is, what do you know about the health of your family? Do you really think, you know what this doctor told me, that said he had this little instrument in his hand already? He said, Chaplain, 40%. Now, he's been in the medical profession for 20 years, very famous doctor in America. He said, Chaplain, 40% of the doctors in America are quitting if Obamacare goes through. You think you're going to be able to get any health care whatsoever in America? So I'm going to touch on that very touchy subject right now and give you something that I've given out very few times ever, and I covered it in depth with my elitist friend on yesterday in about a 45-minute conversation. This may save your life. The elite know how to cure cancer and every known autoimmune disease, talking about everything from leukemia to cancer to arthritis, every autoimmune disease imaginable. They know where a cure is. That's where I was for 3 weeks. The elite know a place that people can have their health care needs taken care of. I had to go and prove this for myself. And my family and I left America. I went outside our country's borders. I had to see it. I had been told about it by my elitist friend. I had trouble believing what I was hearing. He was cured of cancer. And for over 10 years, he's been cancer-free. Mm-hmm. I went there. I saw it. Every autoimmune disease of any kind can be cured. They know where it is. They themselves go there. And you must make preparation for your family's health. In light of what's taking place, it is as important as getting food in your house. It is as important as many other things that you're making in your preparation, from a generator to you name it. You must know where you can get health care in times of emergency. I'm going to give you a phone number. And I very seldom ever have done this before, and I probably would not had I not actually gone there and experienced it for myself. It's toll-free. You need to call toll-free 800-262-0212. Once again, 800-262-0212. I do not receive a penny from this. Okay. This is not an advertisement for Lindsey Williams.
Okay, sir. So this is not to get the DVD, The Middle East, The Rest of the Story. This is to find out more about health opportunities and health care. Okay.
Health care only. This is not my DVD series. This is not the number for that. This is for any person suffering with autoimmune disease, where the elite go, any person suffering with cancer. And I went there, spent 3 weeks, went through the program myself. I am utterly amazed. What happened was, numbers of years ago, there was a doctor in Greece by the name of Alevizartos. He and his dad both were licensed medical doctors in the country of Greece. He was fascinated by cancer and autoimmune diseases, and he spent most of his time in the laboratory trying to find some cure for these diseases, and he did. His dad didn't believe that his own son had done it. And so one day, Alevizartos said to his dad, he said, I'm going to actually give myself cancer. And by some injection method, I don't know how he did it, he did. And then when it began to grow, he cured himself and proved it to be true. He died a number of years ago, but this elitist friend of mine, when he retired from Atlantic Richfield, was diagnosed with lung cancer in both lungs and basically sent home to die. He knew that this was out there. He and his wife flew to Greece, and within 20 days he was cured. I was on the phone with him last night. He's lived for over 10 years with no reoccurrence. And he said to me, he said, Lindsey, you're 75. He said, even though you don't think you've got cancer or any autoimmune disease, and I'm perfectly healthy as far as I know, he said, you need to go and take this treatment. And this was his advice to me personally as a friend of 35 years.
Sure.
And I said, why? He said, let me tell you what I'm doing. He said, he lives in Alaska. He said, I'm out here building an aircraft hangar. He's a pilot, 71 years of age. He said, I'm out here building an aircraft hangar. He said, it's about half snow and half rain. He said, I have not known what it was to even get a sniffle of a cold since I was cured of cancer. He said, I do not know what it is to get sick. He said, what Alevizartos discovered so changed his immune system that he said, if you want to be well, as long as your body will hold together till you just die of a natural old age, he said, you've got to go down there and take this treatment, even though you don't think you need it. He said, it'll do wonders for you. Well, I had wanted for about a year to do that, just couldn't find the time to do it. And a friend of ours came down with cancer, drastic cancer, and they did not want to go the American method of chemotherapy and radiation. So my family and their family all took off where this method that was left by Alevizartos, only one place on the face of the earth that it can be had, and that's at the IBC hospital about 5 miles from the American border. And we actually went there and stayed for 3 weeks, went through the treatment, and proved for ourselves everything that we had heard was true. The thing that you need to do at this point, I beg of you, immediately start taking all final preparations that you're going to do. Everything that you've heard on this program today, it is going to happen. Exactly what Bob Chapman said, I think he is exactly right. And make your preparations. Don't sell your gold and silver. Don't worry about the price right now. It is going to spike up in the very near future. All those things that Mr. Fromm gave me before he died, you're seeing it literally before your eyes. You must know how the Middle East fits into this, and more important than the Middle East, Mr. Fromm told me before he died. He said, Chaplain, he had already told me about the Middle East. He knew how important it was. But he said, Chaplain, he said, pay attention to China. That'd take a whole program today just to cover that subject alone, but yet we've dealt with the Middle East, and I deal with it in my Middle East, the rest of the story, my 3 DVDs, the story, and then if you wish, you can get everything that the elite have told me for the past 3 years on a 6 DVD series, 8 hours of DVD viewing. You can go on the web if you'd like to prophecyclub.com, or if you'd like to speak with an American operator. You will not hear a foreign voice. We don't use those. This is an American operator. Please call toll-free 888-799-6111. You can get them all from that number. If you're prepared, you don't have a thing to worry about. There is no reason whatsoever to lose sleep at night. All you need to do is prepare, and if you know what the elite are doing, and there again, I'll say the difference between what you're hearing on this program today and what you usually hear is the elite personally told me these things, and I just merely relay them to you. Don't give me any credit. I am not a prophet. I do not get this from divine revelation. The elite themselves have told me these things, and as a result, I'm passing them on to you so that you can spare your dinner table in the times that are ahead, Sean.
Well, Pastor Williams, on behalf of the entire audience, we thank you so much for taking time to spend with us, to share this information with this audience, because, the writing is on the wall. The hour's a couple minutes before midnight, and people need to take this opportunity to buy some gold and silver. They need to take this opportunity to buy some storable foods. They need time to, as you say, prepare their house for what is coming. So, Pastor Lindsey Williams, thank you so much for your time. We hope to talk with you again soon.
Lord bless. Set that spiritual house in order first before you do anything else. Get down on your knees after you have viewed this or listened to it, and make sure that you know Jesus Christ is your Savior, that the Bible is your guidebook. Set that spiritual house in order, and then the Lord will lead you as to how to put everything else in its proper place.
Our many, many thanks, and God bless. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Lindsey.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and hang in there. It should be an interesting week and an interesting rest of the year. Good night.